FearScape Media Network, exploring the unknown, one podcast at a time.
Hey guys, Stefan here from FearScape Paranormal Podcast and Misters of the Dark. From now until the end of March, we at the FearScape Media Network are raising funds to support your favorite FSMN shows throughout the next year. One such way is happening on March 5th from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. I will be offering live Zoom tarot readings under the moniker Phoenix Moon. I have been reading professionally for 20 years and now offer my services to all of you. Proceeds from the event go to support the network. Go to fearscapemedia.com/tarot to sign up for your slot now. There's only 12 available, so get one while they last. Thanks again, and remember, you can always support the network by going to fearscapemedia.com/support. Stay spooky.
From FearScape Media, Peer Beyond the Veil is coming back for a new season this March. We're talking government-sponsored mind control, walking on the edge with DMT, wild occultism and deep parapsychology, along with our signature blend of extraterrestrialism, supernaturalism, and cryptid chasing. Bringing you a brand new roster of fascinating guests, each with their own stories and theories on the wild and the wonderful. Peer Beyond the Veil. Find us wherever there's darkness.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of FearScape Paranormal Podcast. Happy that you're able to join us as we continue to explore and try to understand the strange phenomenon that seems to exist all over the world. Stefan and I are on a journey, and we share that journey with you.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another fantastic, phenomenal episode of FearScape Paranormal Podcast here on the FearScape Media Network. I am your host, Stefan Gearhart, and I am joined, as always, by the devilishly quick and bright co-host of mine, Josh Rutledge. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, and as I approach 43, I don't know that I would use the word sprite to describe my movement, but
well,
yeah,
you know, I just
welcome
meant
it.
Bubbly, like a can of Sprite.
Yeah, okay, bubbly.
And you're effervescent,
like Pepsi Clear,
yeah, Crystal Pepsi, baby. Pepsi Crystal, baby. Yeah, so we got a really interesting show today. We have a very special guest joining us today. This is the creator and owner, I guess, so to speak, of the project called O.S.I.R.I.S, which stands for Off-Road Scientific Investigation and Response Informatics System. Now, Josh, you were saying this is, he's got a very specialized vehicle and it uses SkyHub, which we'll talk about, but it's very interesting what he does, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's basically doing mobile UAP looking. So he's using a system called SkyHub, which we'll get into, but it's just a really interesting system. I've looked into it myself, and yeah, it'll be a really good conversation.
Yeah, very, very cool. I think this is very perfect after we had just talked about our tools for searching for UAPs, and yet here's another one that, you know, if you've got it, you can use it. So, but yeah, I'm very excited to get speaking to Jeremy McGowan. I'm very excited about that. But before we get to that, we want to get crack-a-lacking because I want to get into the psychic word of the week to get things kicked off.
And now, the psychic word of the week.
All right, so psychic word of the week comes from the Encyclopedic Psychic Dictionary from June G. Bletzer, PhD. Rest in peace, honey buns. Again, it's always so weird, the things that this book just pulls up, because we flip through the pages. I just stop. I landed at page 236, and the first phrase I see is flashing light. And flashing light is not just a flashing light like you would think. So I was like, okay, well, let's see what it is. It says a light that flashes on and off at regular rhythmic intervals and can be regulated as to speed of flashes. This serves as a tool for meditating and for sending telepathic messages. Light is also timed to one's heartbeat, making it very hypnotic. Dangerous if used too long at one sitting. This has also been theorized to be used by UFO craft to hypnotize the subject in a close encounter so that he will not run away. That is what I was talking about. That it's interesting. We're talking about looking for UAPs and UFOs, and here's a thing talking about hypnotizing folks so that they have to see what they're seeing.
Well, and that's also interesting because Keel talks about it quite a bit in Mothman Prophecies and Eighth Tower. And B, I just got done watching a documentary. It was on Amazon called Lights in the Sky that basically looks at these kind of rhythmic flashing lights and what do they mean. And we're going to have the director of that on in a few weeks. So it all just kind of plays in well with things that we're
Travis Walton talks about that as well from Fire and Sky, which is really cool, by the way. I just, if you've ever tried to find his book on Amazon, it's like $500 or some crap because it got, unpublished is not the word. Out of print.
Out of print.
Good Lord, I'm tired. Out of print years ago. But if you go to his website, you can actually pick up a book there for like $35 or something like that. Well, the cool thing is that he will go ahead and personalize it and sign it as well, free of charge. So I just recently got my book, and it's a much bigger book than I realized. It's like 400 pages. I'm super excited to dig into that. And so, he had it personalized in there. He also sent me 2 postcards where he personalized and sent me a DVD of Paranormal Witness, the abduction, like one of the few 90-minute episodes of that show where they talk. He says that's the best like version of and he said in his opinion is the best version of the events that took place, as well as the Travis Walton documentary that's out right now as well. But he said this is one of the best ones there.
Interesting.
So I'm very interested in looking at it. Yeah, but so very, very interesting, very cool. But he talks about that too, about being hypnotized. He couldn't move. He was just stuck, before he got abducted. So very, very interesting, very cool stuff. Might be something to ask Jeremy about. Maybe he's, heard about that. So
yeah, exactly. Yep.
So very interesting flashing lights. Now I have known, of course, that's used in hypnotism. Santosh will use flashing lights sometimes, and I would assume so.
I've seen where people sometimes use the flicker of a candle.
The flicker of a candle.
Which is, kind of in the same line. So
it's just that rhythmic, thing. But especially with light, because I guess it kind of flexes your iris and things like that. So very interesting. Very, very interesting flashing lights. I see you. I see you out there. All right. That was a pretty quick one today, but I think because we're hypnotized already.
Yeah, we're in a stupor.
All right, so let's move on to the next segment, which of course is okay. Jersey Devil's ready to go because he said he's ready for the cryptid of the week.
Hey y'all, it's the Jersey Devil. Hope y'all are ready to meet some of my friends.
Cryptid of the week.
All right, so cryptid of the week. Who do we got? Which one of Jersey Devil's BFFs? Because he's got hundreds of them. Are we talking about this week?
So we have the Pukwudgie.
Watch your damn mouth.
So the Pukwudgie, it's from the New England area in the U.S. And it described as being troll-like.
Yeah, I think I've heard of the Pukwudgie, to be honest with you.
So it says that when the Wampanoag and other East Coast tribal people made their home in what would eventually be called New England, they told the tales of tricksters with magical powers. The Pukwudgie, meaning people of the wilderness, were just such tricksters. Barely 3 feet tall, with troll-like creatures with oversized ears, hands, and facial features, had grayish skin. Man, a lot of similar.
They're ugly. I'm telling you what, they live next door. They're not far. I live in New England too. They're ugly. Look, just because they're ugly don't mean they're not my friend.
I mean, that's calling something ugly coming from the Jersey Devil is a pretty.
Hey, you shut your mouth, okay? My mama and my daddy are weird. Makes me weird, but that's normal in my family. Get away from my microphone.
You need to put him outside.
Why he has to live with me? I think it's time we need split custody, and he needs to live with you.
No.
Yeah, your girls can totally raise him because
he doesn't. He doesn't like the snow. So
this is true.
So at first they were not in danger. They were full of mischief, but not evil. But they became more and more difficult. The Wampanoag asked a loving godlike giant called Mashoop and his wife Granny Squanit to punish the Pukwudgie. They shook them and scattered them across New England in banishment. When the Pukwudgie returned, they did so with a vengeance, demanding blood and creating mayhem. Not only were they fierce, their magical powers made them hard to contain. They could vanish at will or transform into other animal shapes. They used poisonous weapons in battle and were able to produce fire from thin air. Plus, they could control the soul of any human being they killed. So, yeah. I think
they look a lot like if you were to merge a hobbit and a wood elf together. They really do.
So it also, and I'm gonna draw this connection here again, but the description here: 3 feet tall, oversized ears, hands, and facial features with a grayish skin.
Yep, sounds like the Kentucky Goblin.
Also sounds like the description of the Darrow, and it could also be a little bit of a acquaintance there with the Greys.
Yeah, they are, and they were. They've been mentioned like they're in the Harry Potter universe. They look like they would be in one of the pictures that I saw. They look like they would be in Lord of the Rings. Like I said, they do. They look like very small, stout versions of wood elves. But what's really cool is they were mentioned, and I looked them up, and I'm like, this is where I recognize them, because when I was a kid, my grandmother used to always have me read the poem Song of Hiawatha from Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. And in the Song of Hiawatha, they're mentioned. There's a passage in the chapter, The Death of Kwasind, says, far and wide among the nations spread the name and fame of Kwasind. No man dared to strive with Kwasind. No man could compete with Kwasind, but the mischievous Pukwudgies, they, the envious little people, they, the fairies and pygmies, plotted and conspired against him. So, interesting. Very, very interesting indeed to talk about. Here we are, fairies, pygmies. Again, these are all things that even according to Keel are, like ultra-terrestrials. Yeah. Yep. Like, these goblins or these greys or whatever they may be, like that they are just different terms for a different time.
What was the name of the person that in that verse you just read that they would mess with?
Kwasind, Kwasind. So must have been some like hero or something.
Well, it's interesting in this mention of this cryptid, there's another call out to giants. So, maybe Kwasind was a giant, and that's why no man could compete with him.
Maybe. Very, very interesting indeed. And boy, I want to look up more about Granny Squinted over here too, man. The wife of a giant mouse shop, so.
Yep, exactly.
I don't know. I'm looking for you, Granny. I'm looking for you.
You don't want to mess with Granny. She does not make good pie.
Maybe that's what Granny Goodness was inspired from.
Oh man, from DC Comics. Yeah, Granny Goodness is something else. Well, thank you, JD. We appreciate you introducing us to your friend. All right, so let's get cracking and move right into our UAP sighting of the week. All right, so UAP sighting of the week, Josh, our unidentified aerial phenomenon sighting of the week, our UFO, UAP, shit in the sky. What do we got?
Yeah, so this comes from Blackfoot, Idaho. It happened on the 1st of February of this year at 5:30 p.m.
I was driving west when I noticed a solid white object in the sky flying in a northern direction. As I continued to watch, the object slowed until it was just hovering in place. It continued to hover for about 2 minutes and then started slowly flying away to the northwest until I could no longer see it. There was no sound and no visible means of propulsion. Also, I don't know if they are related, but there was also a crop circle found in the area about a week later.
Where did this say where it was again? Oh, Blackfoot.
Blackfoot, Idaho.
Huh. I wonder if it's possible to
find the crop circle.
Find the clock. Yeah, I mean they don't. Well, I mean we ought to ask that one dude.
Well, yeah, because you know it's something you just don't hear much anymore.
Well, yeah, because what happened was as soon as those guys came out and said it was a hoax and showed everybody how to do it, they stopped reporting on them. Like it was done. From then on, every single one was a hoax. Didn't matter anymore.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, here it is right here. Mysterious crop circle in Shelby Park causes confusion. It was in the East Idaho News. Yep. Ooh, and it's in the snow, too. So it's like a snow and a crop circle.
Well, yeah, it's really cool because you can see that it was done after snow had fallen because there's areas without snow and some with.
Oh, I don't like this. This looks like a pizza, and it says M9SD6L. Get out of here. I'm done.
Why?
I don't know. Like anytime there's like English or anything like that, it legit looks like a pepperoni pizza.
No, it doesn't.
Are you not looking at it?
I am looking at it. It looks like a circle with circles in it. Yeah, it's cut into 8 equal sections, but it doesn't mean it's a pepperoni pizza. Also,
there's garlic and Parmesan around the crust.
No, I mean, I'll give it to you. It does kind of look like a pizza, but that doesn't mean it should be dismissed.
Well, the other thing is I don't know. It looks like if you look at the picture where he's like taking it from the side, it looks like you can see the tractor marks of it going out to there as well.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. But I mean, yeah, but like I said, like that like when it uses like English stuff like that, like I don't know, it just weirds me out. So entities are trying to communicate with us and they shouldn't use English is what you're saying? No, I'm not saying that. It's just, it'd be like us, like how when we sent those little golden records out that we already had their language on there and we were able to speak to them with their language.
Well, maybe that would be the case if we had been visiting them for thousands of years.
I don't know. This doesn't grab me.
Like I said something to you at Santosh the other day. I think that humans are wired to just not be willing to believe certain things because of the proposed paradigm shift that it would create. And I think that when we look at things like this, so on the one hand, you could say, well, you should be skeptical until proven otherwise. But on the other hand, you could say, well, then if you always look at things as it's not possible that it could be true, then what are you going to miss? So
I don't disagree with that. This one just feels weird to me. I don't know. It's also in the location of Wild Adventure Corn Maze. That's where Wild Adventure Corn Maze is, and so people are like, we think it's an advertising thing. So I don't know. But my point is it doesn't take away from the UAP sighting itself. So yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at another news story, and it says the drone pictures revealed the pizza themed design.
Yes, it does look a little pizza-like, but that doesn't mean it's intended to be a pizza. It could also be a wheel. It could also be a surgical light, or a shower head. Who knows?
Shower head. I didn't even think shower head. I was thinking manhole cover.
Most manhole covers are divided into 8 pieces.
Apparently, this guy said he reached out to the guy that owns the property and said that he did it by a small tractor and a tiller that was GOS guided.
Well, there you go.
Or GPS, sorry, not GOS.
All I'm saying is don't always look at something as it can't be done. Look at it.
I don't
with
know.
an open...
I just feel weird. Like there's that one that's like that square and it's got like that picture of the alien face in it. And it just looks like somebody put in a design into a computer. Like that one looks to me like.
Well, there are also some though, and we, I don't think we talked about this or not, but there's like a computer program. So much like there's an app that you can get on your phone that makes it look like you captured a UAP. Mm-hmm. There's also one that you can get on your phone. You take a picture of a field, and it will produce a crop circle in that picture. And so that's in so many cases nowadays, we don't have as many field investigators like we used to, right?
True.
And so nobody really goes out to verify that, yes, there's a crop circle here. Instead we just look at a picture and either accept it or deny it based on just the picture. And unfortunately, because of the number of picture hoaxes there are, it just, goes on to disprove. And then I will say that that one that is like the alien and the crop or whatever, that's one where I don't think anybody's ever been able to find where that actually happened. That was not a field investigation. So we can't really say, is it real or not, because we didn't do a field investigation of it.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, thank you though to the person that sent in that. And if indeed, these two things are connected, very, very cool. I mean, that is, very coincidental for sure.
And let's say that, say that the UAP is legitimate and somebody's out browsing recent reports on MUFON, sees one in their area and tries to capitalize on that sighting.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. If I was trying to bring business into something and would just survive through the year of COVID, I'd probably capitalize on that too.
Very interesting. I'm just continuing on that. Apparently, someone who works in the pizza industry said that the last 3 characters on the thing there, D6L is a pizza oven. It's a model of a pizza oven. Just putting that out there. I don't know how legit that. I'm just looking at Twitter, so I don't know. But anyways, we'll move on from that. Now I want
move on from there.
We'll move on from. Oh my god. So moving on, let's get into our creepy catch up here, so we can get talking to Jeremy. So, all right, creepy catch up.
Creepy catch up. Creepy catch up. Creepy catch up. Y'all, it's creepy.
All right, so creepy catch up. I'm gonna. Do you want to go first this time? I actually have some this week, so
I have a little bit that I'll talk about, and then I think you've probably got some better stuff than me, so we'll let you go last.
Okay.
So I've only had a couple. I continue to see shadows moving around in the corner of my eye, offside, my peripheral vision. continue to see kind of like light flashes or light movement, and then I try to recreate it, and I can't figure out anything in the house that would recreate, to recreate the light movement. Little things like that. A couple nights I've laid down to go to sleep and felt presence in the room, like I felt something there that wasn't normally there, to the point where I thought maybe it was one of my daughters had gotten out of bed. So like I checked to see if they were in the room, and they weren't, but it definitely felt like there was something in the room. And then like I'm reading right now this book by Ryan Sprague called Somewhere in the Skies.
Yeah,
and it's
that as well.
And it's full of a bunch of like great contactee, witness information. And one of the things that like an account that I just read was about these people saw a UFO in their backyard, and then later that night and subsequent nights, one of the daughters saw little entities walking around in the house, but nobody else could see them. And so that just kind of goes to my thing around, do they come in a UFO and then they come back, quote unquote, in person to investigate you, but they're basically invisible. You can't see them, but maybe some people are, have the ability to see them. I don't know. But, and then all of that. And then that's really my only creepy catch up that's happened. But my other thing is it's a conspiracy theory. Kind of related.
This is the show for that, Josh. I think you're safe here. I think you're safe here.
This is a safe place. So, I posted, it's been like the last part of January, I posted a video on YouTube of a picture that I had taken back in the summer, or maybe early fall, of my backyard. And I was just kind of looking at the tree line, and I came across what looks like a goblin or an ET type thing kind of peeking out behind a tree. So, I did a video of that, the manipulation of the video of the image, kind of, try to brighten it up or something like that to try to get a better view. It's gotten a lot of good response on YouTube, but it's funny that 2 weeks after I posted that is when the helicopter with no lights on basically buzzed my backyard in the wooded area behind my house. And the sheriff's department, local sheriff's department, I posted and saying that the military was going to be in the area, that you might hear gunfire, that you might hear helicopters flying over and things like that, and that they're training, right? And that was going to happen over several nights. It happened that night and that night only. And they have not been back. And so it really makes me curious. I post that video, and then 2 weeks later, the military shows up and buzzes my tree line for, 45 minutes and then never shows up again.
Jeez.
Makes me want to
I say, why are they out over your area?
Right. There's nothing out there. There's houses and horses and cows.
Well, I'm not even talking about the UAP. I'm talking, or the ultra terrestrial. I'm talking about the military. Like,
that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Oh, okay, there's nothing out there to be training. Like, are they training how to take down a horse? I don't know how to. So that's what I'm saying. That there's no reason for them to be training in my area. There's other wooded areas. Hell, if they're coming from Fort Knox is surrounded by wooded areas. Bernheim. There's so many areas where there's not people's homes. Like, I don't know. Do they not have to buzz the trees at 8:30 at night? I really wish I had my camera that I got that allows me to see in near darkness, because I'm telling you, man, I could have seen the pilot. Yeah, if they were that low.
Well, and it's that same thing. It's like the Phoenix Lights, like how they were trying to say, oh, they came out like days later. Oh, it was, tracer rounds, blah, blah, blah. Like, if you're doing something like that, why would you not let everyone know ahead of time?
Right.
Hey, we're going to put some crazy ass lights in the sky. It's going to be the military. We don't want you to confuse it with anything.
Right.
Okay. We're just letting you know. No, 3 days later. Oh yeah. Oh, yeah, that was us.
Yeah, they were well, and I've seen aerial flares. I used to know a guy who did a lot of dumb things, and he used to go out into a parking lot and pop off aerial flares for no freaking reason. But they, they go up and they sit there for a little while, but then they slowly fall back down.
Yeah, those Phoenix lights.
That's not what happened in Phoenix.
No.
So, but anyway, so I mean that's my creepy catch-up / conspiracy theory of the week.
All right. Well, I, for having a couple weeks of nothing, have just been inundated with stuff this past week. Like I have been like seeing things like behind me at work quite frequently. I keep thinking someone's standing behind me. I turn and there's no one there, but I'll see the shadow or I'll feel this presence behind me. Specifically at work, that's happened quite frequently. I was out walking my dog the other night and I kept seeing eyes in bushes, and every time I would like shine my phone flashlight, there'd be nothing there. Like I expected, maybe like a raccoon or a rabbit or no, because it was much higher up. It was always in like the taller bushes, and just things like that. Like I just feel like I've been being looked at and watched a lot. But interesting thing is, last night my sister came over and my wife, myself, and my sister decided, let's bust out the Ouija board. It's been a while. Had some really good pudding moments. So the first one, which was just really weird, was, we were like, hey, if there's somebody here, let us know. Outside of the board, give us a sign. Well, right at that moment, in the very back bathroom, we're on the complete opposite side of the apartment. The very back bathroom, Amazon Alexa Echo device goes, your network connection has dropped or whatever. It was just like, cannot connect to the network. And we're like, what? And then like it flips over and starts playing this song called Sometimes by a group called Goth Babe. I have no idea where this came from. No one was touching their phones. Okay. And yeah, you're like, well, maybe it just picked back up and it's like continuing what it was playing earlier. No, I was listening to Rush earlier in the day. There's no way that this like emo, soft, like indie folk song is going to be played off of like this classic rock mix with Rush that I had going on. I've never heard of this band ever in my life. It was just so weird. We were like, what the hell? Like, what the hell? My wife's friend who passed away last year showed up, had very intimate knowledge, which was, made her tear up, because there was just stuff that, none of us knew about. But the craziest thing, and it's only crazy because of what happened after, is we had a guy show up. And his name was Jack. He said his name was Jack Washington. And my sister goes, boy, that's the whitest name I've ever heard. And he goes, no, I'm black. And we're like, oh, okay. He goes on to talk about that he was a jazz musician, and that he knew he knew me and my sister's great grandpa Thomas, that they had known each other at like a club at one point when he was in Detroit, which my grandpa lived probably 45 minutes from Detroit. And side story, and he said he met him in 1926. And my great grandfather at that time was touring. He was part of a barbershop quartet. In fact, he was the president of the Barbershop Quartet Society of Michigan. And he was touring all around, performing and stuff. And they met at a club, is what this guy said. He said he was a jazz saxophonist. And he said that he met our grandfather in Detroit in 1926. And then, Trisha asked him, she's like, oh, well, when did you die? He said, I was 54 years old. And we're like, wow, that's crazy, right? And so, it was just kind of neat. And we got done and we all started researching. Well, indeed, this is what's crazy, Josh. Like, there was this bit saxophone player in Count Basie's orchestra named Jack Washington. He was a black dude, but he was from Kansas City. So I started doing some more research and I noticed that he was born in 1910. I was like, this dude would have been 16 years old. There's no way he would have been in Detroit. Like, I start doing the research. Well, he dropped out of school at 15 to play music. He got picked up with Benny Moten's orchestra. And that next year when he was 16, he was touring the Midwest with Benny Moten's orchestra.
Wow.
playing saxophone. And so he would indeed have been in Detroit in 1926 at 16 years old playing this club. And then we look, the dude died when he was 54 years old.
Wow.
I mean, my mind is, I've never had such pudding moments like that on the Ouija board in my entire life. Like, my wife is like sending me and Trisha these because everybody's in bed. Like, everybody's in there. I'm still out on the couch watching horror movies. But my wife, like, we're all just sending all this like info we're finding. We're like, oh my God. Like, well, you never heard of this guy. I mean, it's like, he's a nobody. Like, his Wikipedia page is like a paragraph long. He's like nobody. Like, I asked my brother if he knew who he was. He was a jazz guy. He's like, nah, never heard of him. So it's not like we happen to know this guy. Like, it was, I mean, like 54 years old, 1926, he would have been in Detroit, which is my grandfather would have been performing at that time in Detroit. You know, he's 16, but hey, he dropped out of school at 15, was touring with this orchestra, and then ended up being in Count Basie's orchestra for like a record or two, and then just kind of retired. Like, just crazy, man. Like, and a black dude. Like, I mean, just very specific stuff. Very specific stuff. It was so remarkable to me and so fascinating. I just absolutely loved it. It was such a great moment. The other thing is unless you had something to say about that.
Nope.
Okay. The other thing was about you. So it's my sister was like, hey, is there anybody here that has a message for anyone in particular? So it says yes for Stefan. This dude named Gus gets on there and says that he says, just letting you know, UAPs are real. That's what he says, right? I'm like, okay, cool. And he goes, oh, and by the way, Josh is going to see one. And I said, he's already seen one. He's like, no. He's going to see one in Arizona. Let him know to look to the skies.
I'm always looking to the skies, Gus.
So Gus wanted to let you know.
Oh, well, that's good.
You're going to see a UAP, which is hilarious since you asked me the other day, what would I do if we were out in the desert and we saw a gray in front of us? And I said, I would pass out or push you in front of me. I said, though Santosh said I would scream like a little baby and run.
Maybe you would scream like a baby, run, trip on a rock, pass out, fall into me, which pushes me forward. It's like a little Rube Goldberg.
Yeah, Rube Goldberg. So that's my creepy catch up. Just a lot of stuff. I've been feeling a lot of spirits lately around. Pretty new. And there was more stuff that happened on the Ouija board, just not as cool as those events.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. I thought it was cool that it brought you up. And it was very, very cool. So, well, I guess I'm rambling. So let's go ahead. We're going to move to our ad break here before we get to Jeremy McGowan. But I do want to quickly say, and I'm going to mention this at the end as well, that on March 5th, correct? March 5th?
Yep, March 5th.
March 5th from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I, under my moniker of Phoenix Moon, I'm going to be offering tarot readings to help us raise money for the FearScape Media Network. There are 12 slots available. You can go to fearscapemedia.com/tarot and sign up for a slot. They're $40 for a slot. Like I said, proceeds go to the FearScape Media Network. It's going to be a lot of fun. I've been reading for 20 years, so this is not some amateur thing. I know what I'm doing. I've been reading professionally for a long time. It's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, we wanted to make sure to just get you guys on that, as well as like all through the rest of March and everything. We are going to be raising money for the network. So you can also go to fearscapemedia.com/support. And just, donate there. If you wanted to go to our podcast specifically, just leave a note that says, hey, I want this to go directly to FearScape Paranormal Podcast. And then we'll put that into things that are directly beneficial just to FearScape Paranormal Podcast or just to the network at large. So just wanted to make sure to put that out there before, and I'm going to say it again at the end, just letting you know. So let's get to Jeremy McGowan, and we're going to take a very quick ad break, and we'll be right back. Hey everybody, Stefan here. This episode is sponsored by the great folks over at Box Mountain. Box Mountain is a subscription box service that has my favorite sub box yet, the Cryptid Crate.
You see, Josh got one of these for his birthday, and I was super jealous because it was packed full of merchandise pertaining to cryptids. The box he received first was all about the Flatwoods Monster, which of course is one of our favorites, and it had a t-shirt, a book, a patch, mug, and some awesome stickers. So I checked out the price to get one for myself, and let me tell you, it is well worth the value. These make excellent gifts for yourself or even friends that are cryptid lovers as well. Now, if you use the coupon code FearScape, you will get 25% off the first month for any new subscription or 10% off individual purchases. So go ahead and head on over to fearscapepodcast.com/cryptidcrate now and get yourself one today.
The internet could be better than it is today. More open, private, and secure. That's why the engineers, system administrators, and designers at NordVPN have spent the last 8 years developing a security and privacy tool to bring this vision closer to reality. Today, millions of NordVPN users around the world click the blue Quick Connect button whenever they need online protection. That's a very private club. To join this club, go to fearscapepodcast.com/VPN and protect your internet activity today.
And welcome back, everybody. Thank you guys for sticking around after the break. We really appreciate it. Like I said, we have Jeremy McGowan here, like O.S.I.R.I.S. I'm just ready to dig into this, man. We already kind of precursored. So, Josh, I'm going to hand this off to you, and let's get talking about O.S.I.R.I.S. because I'm ready to roll. No pun intended.
So, yeah, so I mean, I know that I've gone out and looked at a lot of the videos on your YouTube channel that's all around the O.S.I.R.I.S. project. And I know you've built it in a Land Rover and I think using a SkyHub system, but you just want to talk a little bit about, kind of what O.S.I.R.I.S. is, the setup, and maybe we can get into a little bit of like why you wanted to go this route.
Yeah, well, first off, guys, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here. And
we are excited about it, man.
I appreciate it. I feel like I've been thrust into the center of this conversation, and I don't have the qualifications to back up my mouth, but I'm doing the best that I can. So
that's the story of my life, man.
Same here. It's like we learn, week to week, we learn a little bit more. We get on the show and we talk about it. That's all it is. So
there you go. So the O.S.I.R.I.S., man, it's an interesting project, and yes, I used a SkyHub as the primary sensor stack with the vehicle, but it's not the only sensor stack that I've integrated in with. The reason that I went with SkyHub, and I will encourage everybody, first off, to go visit skyhub.org. This is a nonprofit organization. They've come together, a group of volunteers that have built the base code, that have identified the equipment and put the mission statements together, and have enabled people like me to go out and do what I'm doing. It's a wonderful group and collection of talent that's out there, and I would encourage everybody to do it. But the reason that I chose SkyHub is because I'm kind of on a little bit of a crusade in getting open source information for attacking this idea of the phenomenon and finding out what it is. Throughout recent history, and I'm going to say recent history being the last 70 years of official government investigations into UFOs and UAP and the phenomenon, everything has been compartmentalized. It has been put under security classifications. It has been hidden, obfuscated, thrown into dark corners in the basements of the Pentagon, and we don't have access to that. It's only through people like John Greenwald and the guys that are doing the massive FOIA requests that we're even getting glimpses of what the government has. So the reason that I picked SkyHub primarily is because their open source policy. First off, their code is open source. So anybody that is tech can get on the GitHub and look at the code and see what it does. But more than that, they don't hide anything. If my SkyHub picks something up, when my SkyHub picks something up, everybody on the planet is going to have access to that information. It's not going to be like, I'm not going to be a real estate mogul that buys a ranch and tells everybody that weird and mystical things are happening there, but then never gives anybody information.
Yes.
Right. And it reminds me too, we were just talking recently about NASA, how NASA used to very much, you could watch the live feed live. Now it's delayed.
It's delayed.
Well, even before the live feed, NASA used to give out radios, and you could have this little radio sitting on your nightstand listening live to the communications back and forth between Houston and the Apollo mission. And that's gone. There is no live feed anymore. Everything's delayed, everything's sterilized, everything's censored, and the people don't have access to the information. So going back to the SkyHub, I picked them because they don't do that.
So just for anybody who's listening who may not know what SkyHub is, because I've also done some research into it, and I am looking at it from a, can I build this? And I think I can. I mean, for an individual to go out and build this, they do have to have some technical aptitude, because there is some clicking in of cables into circuit boards and microcomputers and things of that nature. But then once you kind of all get it all set up, then it's just a matter of installing the operating or the software over top of probably Linux, and then you're off and running. My question is, most of what, like when you look at their website, they've got 3 options. Most of them are set up off the NVIDIA Jetson system, but I've got 2 Raspberry Pis, and I'm trying to figure out, can I make this work with a Raspberry Pi? Because if that's the case, then I've got already half of the hardware sitting in my basement. So
yeah, no, Raspberry Pis were looked at, and SkyHub. I'll apologize in advance if I'm talking for them, because I didn't do any of the development or the vetting or the coding. But from my understanding, the SkyHub team had initially looked at the Raspis and tested them. And while there was some early stage successes, the NVIDIA Jetsons are actually designed for AI applications, whereas Raspi is more of a, you can make it into a garage door opener. You control your toaster with it, or you can use it as a cryptocurrency mining machine if you wanted to. But the Jetson has a specificity for artificial intelligence and machine learning, which is what is at the core of the Sky.
Yeah, and that's what I got from it, is basically, like you said, Raspberry Pi works great for RetroPie to be able to play your 1980s arcade games.
Yeah, but Jetson is
but Jetson is really for those more real world applications as a microcomputer. Mm-hmm. And so basically, I think what it is you've got a Jetson, you've got GPS, you've got a really good, like a 12 megapixel IR sensitive camera. And then it's all kind of in a housing, and then so that's the SkyHub system. And then one of the really nice things that I like about what they're doing, their mission, is that it's constantly scanning using AI, using your camera, and if it detects an anomaly, it uploads that anomaly to a cloud for everybody to look at. And it's a lot like we talked about this when we did our Boyd House interview. It's a lot like how NASA, it's not NASA, it's JPL, they have their planet searching site. I don't know if you've ever been in there or not, but they produce all these radio wave responses and visual light monitoring, and you can look through there and see if you can identify exoplanets. Yep. And so I've done that from time to time. And so this is kind of along that line. It's almost like you're crowdsourcing UAP detection.
Yeah, I think the team and I've kind of adopted the idea that this is the most ambitious global citizen science project that mankind has ever undertaken, because literally anybody on this planet can do this and is encouraged to participate.
Yeah, and then when you get to O.S.I.R.I.S, then what I see is the aggressiveness of the research, right? Like that's the one thing I like about the YouTube channel and all the stuff that you're doing is it almost feels like you're taking SkyHub to the next level. Really, it's like I'm going to push this as far as I can.
Yeah, to be honest, SkyHub's taken me to the next level. Without the tool, I would be nothing in any of this. Man, I'm just tired. I'm tired of waiting. Yes. I've said it on so many other occasions, other podcasts, and in some of my writings. We are not going to get disclosure if we wait on the government to give it to us. Mm-hmm. But as a population, if we come together, if we group together, if we use technology in a standardized format, we can actually be the people who give the government disclosure. Yeah. We can leapfrog this.
I'm interested what your thoughts are on that, on the whole. Well, so I'm interested in what your thoughts are on two things. One, what is your mindset of friend or foe? Because it seems like a lot of the military interest and even the folks over at To the Stars Academy are really under the idea that there's some threat or risk to these potentiality for it, for these things to be in the sky. But then there's folks like, Dr. Stephen Greer and others who look at it and say, no, the threat or risk is just a spin to get funding to go off and do these research things, but really they mean it's no harm. I'm interested what your thoughts are on friend or foe.
Well, I will say that the United States government specifically doesn't typically fund things out of goodwill.
Right.
So the friend or foe narrative does get money flowing. That's just a historical fact.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the flip side of this, if they are so, let me back up 30 seconds here. If we're dealing with nuts and bolts, if we're dealing with off-world civilizations that have the ability to travel, vast distances across the galaxy, if they wanted us dead, we'd already be dead.
Right.
So I don't see them as a threat if they are a nuts and bolts type of entity. Mm-hmm. But I'm leaning a little bit further away from the idea that this phenomenon and the UAP aspect of this more specifically is a nuts and bolts aspect. I think that this is probably tied more into the ideas of a control construct or even a modern day viewing of religious iconography in three dimensions, for example. But I also believe that there probably are nuts and bolts spacefaring civilizations, but the question that I'm wrestling with right now is whether or not they are as subject to this phenomenon as we are. So I'm trying to look at, do aliens exist? And if they do, are they seeing shadow people too?
Right. Well, and in something that we've talked about on the show quite a bit in the past, and since the readings of John Keel, is are they not even extraterrestrial? Are they? Do they inhabit the same planet that we do? We just have never encountered each other.
Right.
We see. The human eye can see like 0.03% of the visible spectrum.
Yep.
So what else exists in the other 99 point, whatever, I can't do the math right now.
Yeah, I had a great conversation with Tim McMillan probably about a month or so ago, and it was an off the record conversation. We were just talking back and forth to each other over a Zoom call, and we got on the topic of the fact that it wasn't until just and Tim, if you're listening, forgive me, I don't remember the exact dates, but it wasn't until somewhere around, I want to say 2,000 or 3,000 years BC, humanity wasn't even able to see the color blue.
Yeah.
We had no ability to recognize that color. So being being knowledgeable about the fact that our brains are still evolving.
Yeah.
You know, what else are we not seeing today? What else is right in front of us, right beside of us, that we have no ability to perceive?
That's something I've heard before, but I haven't thought about in a long time. Yeah, absolutely. And like that's why purple and indigo was such a big deal, because it was kind of the closest to blue at the time before they were really able to finally see that blue. It's I forgot all about that.
It's wild.
Yeah.
And I read somewhere that scientists don't even think that there is such thing as pink light. It's just how our brains interpret ultraviolet light. And so it's again, we see it as pink, but it's really just how we're interpreting ultraviolet light.
That's interesting. I had not heard that. That's really cool.
The other thought I'd like to get on you is, and I totally lost it in between our conversation.
Pink light, dude, it got you.
It's that pink light is getting me. I don't know, Stefan, you got a question?
What I was going to ask, I what I'm really curious in is just kind of like give us a snapshot of a day in the life of Osiris. Like,
oh man. Yeah, well, I built this thing in a 22-year-old Land Rover, so a day in the life of the Osiris typically revolves around mopping up oil puddles underneath the axle, trying to convince my buddy Steven to come back over to my house and tighten bolts that I don't have the strength or the knowledge to be able to tighten on, and figuring out how to fix it, because what people don't understand is Osiris was my daily driver. I got hooked on this to the point where I actually went out and I started drilling holes in the roof of the car that I drive on a daily basis to incorporate all of this electronics and sensor stacks into it. So what is going to be a day in the life of the Osiris is going to be, I'm launching a YouTube channel. I'm getting ready to publish a website. And this is all for the advent of citizen science. I got involved in a project that ended up being something that I didn't really walk away from it, but I kind of changed my position with it. As you guys know, I was on the History Channel's Unidentified, season 2, episode 3, I think it was. And ever since then, I've realized that whenever anything has a massive publication house or distribution house behind it, there is a narrative. Wherever there is money involved, and I don't mean $1,000 or $5,000 here and there. I mean when there are millions of dollars involved in the production of something, it comes with a narrative. So what I am doing is I'm trying to bring that back down to a grassroots level. Yeah. So the Osiris and I are going to go out and we're going to film our investigations. We're going to put it on YouTube, and we're going to give access to the same experiences and data to anybody who watches that I'm having as I'm sitting in that car. And it's not going to be a cliffhanger episode. It's not going to be held for, what the hell happens in season 2.
Right.
None of that's going to happen. You guys are going to be sitting in the right seat of Osiris as I go out to places, hopefully, like Skinwalker, or go down to Texas and investigate the Martha Lights, or whatever happens to be the investigation of the day. You guys are going to come along with me, and you're going to see it as it happens. Sure, there's going to be some editing. There's going to be some things that I take out, because you have to compress it and get it to.
Right.
If I'm out there for 2.5 days, nobody's going to watch a 2.5 days, worth of video. I've got to get it down into an hour, maybe 2 hours, or things like that. But it's not going to come with a narrative. I'm going to present the actual data. I'm going to present the actual science. And if I go out and I haven't made up my mind on CE5, on if it's real or if it's not yet. So if there's a group of folks that do CE5 that invite me out to bring the Osiris and record the session, if I record nothing, I'm going to present nothing.
Yeah.
So it's going to be raw data that is given to the world, so everybody has access to the exact same stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. We had months ago, we had Jeff Mudgett on, who was the great-great-grandson of H.H. Holmes, and had that American Ripper show on the History Channel. And he let us know legit what, that the ending was contrived. Like, that was not at all what the DNA results actually came back as. They didn't want to push all this stuff, that it was indeed, connected to him and all this different stuff, he said, but they changed everything. He even met Rahm Emanuel, the mayor of Chicago, because they wanted to do this dive for these barrels. But History Channel said that the mayor and that group said no, they wouldn't do it. And he met Rahm Emanuel. He was like, no one ever came to me. We would have absolutely let you guys go down there. But yeah, just like you were talking about. So he has a really, of course, shitty relationship with History Channel now, of course, too. And it blew my mind talking to him about that. Cause you can't help. It's history. You think it's educational. You think that this is what it is. This is the legit stuff. Well, but yeah, it's about making money.
I don't want to disparage the project that I was involved with.
Oh, of course.
With Lou and Sean and It's Redacted and I Believe in Humans and those guys. These guys came together with the idea of the same mentality that I had. The idea of being able to present honest data. But it's infotainment. It's not a documentary per se. It's not entertainment, but it's presenting information in an entertaining way. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, and that's why I like following their Twitters. They tend to be a little more transparent on Twitter, which is really interesting.
Yes, and I love what these guys are doing, but it's not what I wanted to do. I really wanted the raw, unfiltered. I didn't want color correction. I didn't want edit breaks. I didn't want commercial interruptions. I wanted basically a film crew to follow me around in O.S.I.R.I.S. as I did an investigation and present it in the most scientifically accurate and honest way possible, which I think is great. And that's exactly what I'm going to do with a handful of GoPros, some iPhones, and me myself doing video editing on a laptop computer from 2014.
And let me say thank you, because we need more of that. And that's the problem. And it scares me for us if we get a lot bigger mainstream, that money does decide things. And it's scary because you think that money is going to push you further. You think if you get that contract, that thing, but it comes with so many caveats.
Yeah. And I will never disparage anybody who wants to make money in doing this, because I have a mortgage to pay. I've got electricity bills to pay. I've got a daughter that needs fed, things like that. So if I can make money while I do this, that's fantastic. If the other guys can make money while they do this, this is fantastic. I have a normal 9-to-5 job. So I don't necessarily need to make money off of the UFO stuff, off of the phenomena stuff. If I lose my job, totally different story.
Right.
But I'm taken care of right now, right? Yeah. So I have the ability on nights and weekends and federal holidays to go out and take the O.S.I.R.I.S. and drive to the back gate of Area 51 or go out and, take an extended weekend down to Odessa or wherever and run investigations and be able to present the science to the world in a raw format where people can make up their own minds. And I'm not going to look up in the sky and say, holy crap, that is a UFO. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look up in the sky, and assuming I saw something strange, I will say, this is what the SkyHub data shows. Mm-hmm. This is what my Geiger counter data shows. This is what my tri-field data shows. I'm not going to give opinion. I'm going to give facts, and you're going to be able to see the readings on the tri-field meters. You're going to be able to get access to the links where the SkyHub has picked up the information. Whatever other sensors I incorporate in, I'm going to give the people access to that so they can see it for their own eyes and they can make their own decisions on this. Because I am not qualified to know if the radiation in a level spikes by 600 rads, I don't even know what that means.
Right.
I have no clue. And I think that people in the History Channel, when they watch Skinwalker Ranch and they see that, a tri-field meter is going absolutely nuts, what does that mean? We don't know. We're not trained in that. So,
and obviously, I mean, it's probably 600 rads is probably Jeff Bridges saying rad 600 times. That's
right. I don't know. What's up, dude? But I don't know what it means. So my goal is to record the data and present it to people much smarter than I am to be able to interpret the data and come back to me and say, hey, Jeremy, you got a giant goose egg, or holy crap, we've never seen this before.
Right.
We don't know what it is. Now we want you to go back with X, Y, and Z tools and see if you can replicate this or see if you can find out more information.
Yeah, we talk about that with ghost hunting too. People that, share their evidence, they say, here's an EVP, and they tell you ahead of time what it's supposed to sound like. It's misleading, right? And so we've always said, we always appreciate those that say, here's an EVP. What do you think it says? And then you can compile a list. And if 9 out of 10 people are saying it says get out, then you're probably pretty sure it says get out. But if you're saying, hey, does this sound like get out to you? Your brain's already kind of hearing that.
You're pre-programming people.
Yeah. And so I appreciate ghost hunters that do that say, hey, here's our evidence. What do you think? Instead of telling you what to think.
Yeah.
Well, but I mean, on the same line though, you are producing it as UAP related content.
Yeah.
And so, so just by saying, here's a set of data potentially for UAP, that still is kind of setting up that people are looking at it saying, is this or is this not a UAP? And so I think that what we'll find, and I'm interested to see if you've had others that have looked at it so far, is your diehard skeptics will say it's not. Your believers will say it is.
Yeah.
And there will never be, in my opinion, there will never be enough evidence that a skeptic will say, you know what, you got me. I'm no longer a skeptic.
It happens to them 100% personally.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I recognized this early on in the process. And I don't know, God, it's been maybe a month now ago. I actually had a conversation with Mick West. And I was asking Mick, this wasn't a podcast, it wasn't a recorded conversation or anything like that. I just had a personal conversation with Mick. And I asked him, I was like, Mick, what would make Mick West happy in the way that I present data? How would you like to see what I bring to the table? What do you want from me that allows you to say, holy shit, I don't know what this is? Instead of having Mick West going, oh, that's a Batman balloon. So I had a really good, it was probably about an hour-long conversation with Mick. And he I don't want to speak for him, but I believe that he really appreciates the processes that I'm going through and the outlook that I'm trying to do, and in trying to build a baseline of knowledge to help identify what the hell is going on.
Yeah. I mean, and at the end of the day, I would say that this is something that I've really thought about lately. When I have a UAP experience, and I capture, if I am able to capture evidence of it, or if I just have the experience myself and I share that experience with others, I'm not trying to convince you that I had an experience. I know that I had an experience.
Sure.
And any evidence that I capture really just goes to reinforce for myself that I had an experience. At the end of the day, all I'm trying to do is share with others who are having experiences that they're not alone.
Yeah. And I think that is the motto of this show from the very beginning, was just say, hey, you're not alone. There are others that have seen things and felt things, that you're not the only one. Because we get that a lot. We get people to send in stories, especially when it comes to UAP sightings. They're like, I just want to let you know I'm not crazy. This isn't happening. And I'm like, to go back to what you were talking about, it's like, if all these people, like we talk about, there's like, 30,000 UAP sightings a month. like average, that's a lot of people in the world. And if all of those would realize there's all of those and all the ones that weren't reported,
right,
you'd realize that the majority of the world does not look at it as crazy, that we've all seen things, that we could say it's no longer this and feel comfortable to come forward, because it's not anymore. It's not this crazy thing anymore.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for the TV show, bash history all we can, but
Right.
for their editing. But if it wasn't for that TV show, I would not be here.
I agree.
So,
100%.
It did a lot of good, even though the narrative was played out. But on the flip side, we have to be cognizant that there are some assholes out there that are straight up lying about things. They are straight up fabricating things because they simply want their 15 minutes or their $1,500, and they're going to perpetrate a fraud against humanity. And we have to be cognizant that those guys exist.
Well, and unfortunately, because technology has advanced in such a way to allow them to produce better hoaxes, it has really impacted the overall credibility of the phenomenon and in any reports related to the phenomenon. How many times over the last year did you maybe see a UAP video, and how many people said, "Oh, it's a drone," or it's swamp gas was the thing of the 50s and 60s. It's a drone is the thing of now.
Yeah.
And so,
and the worst part is that it's people within the community sometimes that created that problem. Like Gray Barker, for example, he loved playing pranks and playing hoaxes, while at the same time loved pushing real UFO research and all of this stuff. But he hurt himself in the process, him and Jim Mosby and stuff, by the pranks that they played and hoax.
There is an allure, man. I mean, when you get cameras pointing at you, when you get people coming to you and people want to talk to you because of your experience or whatever, it's almost like a heroin addiction. In a sense. You're chasing that dragon constantly. You're always looking for that next fix. So people are going to come out and they're going to fake things so they can get on the next awesome podcast, so they can make that Ancient Aliens episode and sit there beside of Giorgio, but it's reprehensible in a way, because it's perpetrating a fraud against humanity, and it's doing the government's work for them.
Right,
is what it's doing, because it's obfuscating the actual events that are real.
Yeah, they don't need to have misinformation. You don't have misinformation department anymore. They just use Twitter. So
yeah, we're doing it for them.
And I've always said too, I'm like, the old the trick gum, you pull it out and it stabs you in the finger or whatever. I'm like, just because I've given you a fake piece of gum doesn't mean gum doesn't exist. Like,
right.
You don't go, well, man, what have I been chewing all these years?
Yeah, and just because somebody might be paying helicopter pilots to throw flares out during CE5 events doesn't mean that human-initiated contact is not real.
Is not real. Exactly.
Yeah, we're hoping for a CE5 event in next month, right, Stefan?
Yeah, we're gonna. Well, just personally, but yeah, he's coming out. I live out in Phoenix, so he's coming out to Phoenix. We're gonna go out to the desert, out to Sedona, and try to do our own CE5 type thing.
Yeah,
Stefan, I tell you what. I'm based in Vegas. Phoenix is just a couple hours away from me, man. Let's coordinate this and let's bring me and the O.S.I.R.I.S out. Let me try to record some data during a CE5 attempt.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, but I've got I just got an Aurora Pro, Psionics Aurora Pro, and so I'm looking forward to taking that out and seeing what I can capture with that. So I don't know if you've ever.
With the it's kind of a civilian version of night vision.
Yeah, it's their I think it's branded as color night vision, but it's I think it's probably the best you can get on the civilian market without getting into the $4,000 and $5,000. Which I don't think I could convince my wife to let me pay for it just yet.
It's interesting, because the only reason that I'm sitting here today is because of a pair of military night vision goggles that I just had happenstance to put on during a smoke break when I was in Jordan in 1995 and saw what I saw. So night vision is incredibly important in these investigations.
Yeah. So is that considered a Gen 2 unit or?
oh God, 1995. I don't even know. This would, if one of your listeners wants to look it up, I know exactly. It was an A&V PVS-7 Bravo was the night vision goggles that I was using at the time. A&V PVS-7 Bravo. So I don't know if that was Gen 2 or Gen 3.
Yeah.
Man, we would play football with these things. I mean, it was crap. So I have no idea. They were indestructible, and you could see an amazing amount of stars when you look at it.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's amazing the things that a lot of vets that are comfortable talking about it, things that they've seen out in the Middle East. We had a guy on, a Marine, Steven Stanek, that, I mean, him and a number of these guys saw what they thought to be a jinn when they were in Afghanistan. That, I mean, he was visibly shaking telling this story. I mean, it's just remarkable. And that was just one of the things they saw when they were out there, you know.
Wow.
Like, I can't imagine.
I've seen some things, most of which I've been able to explain away.
Yeah.
And I don't even bring it up, because if I can find a logical or plausible explanation for it, you know, Occam's razor, it's probably what it is.
Right.
But that thing in 95, I was like, I got no clue. It just, whatever. I don't know what it was.
Care to elaborate?
I've talked. I won't go into a lot of detail about the story, because I've told it, God, 1,000 times so far.
Okay.
But basically, I was looking up at the night sky in Jordan, and I saw, with night vision goggles, and I saw a pinpoint of light traversing from horizon to horizon with a 90-degree turn in the middle, with no visible signs of slowing down, no arc or radius to the turn. It was literally as if somebody had a square up in the heavens, and this thing was following the exact 90-degree angle, and there was no depreciation of momentum or change in speed or anything. It was just something that a conventional aircraft that we have here cannot do. And I was a pilot for a little while, and I'm very familiar with how airplanes work, lift, drag, thrust.
Yeah.
This just was not.
Well, that's like we saw one night last year, a line, which everybody hears line and they think, you know, Starlink, but we actually vetted that it wasn't Starlink, what we saw. But anyways, it was a line, and it started. We first noticed it at about 30 degrees off the horizon. And it tracked a straight line up to 90 degrees from our point, and then they disappeared.
Interesting.
They didn't come out the other side.
So this is something you just said something that I think that needs to be incorporated into citizen science, is basic understanding of astronomy measurements. No one that I have ever spoken to knows how to shoot an azimuth. Nobody knows how to use a sextant and be able to get an angular unit of measurement from the horizon. And things like this would be so important if we could come up, you know how some of these VR headsets are like, hey, take your phone and stick it in this cardboard box.
Yeah.
Now you have a VR.
Right.
You could come up with something as simple as that you could make off the back of a cereal box cutout.
Yeah.
But would allow you to be able to calculate azimuths and degrees above horizon elevation. This would be a game changer for citizen science.
It helps us because we want to verify everything. So we've got our Sky Tracker apps where we're checking airlines and helicopters, as well as Starlink, which Starlink was there earlier in a different area of the sky. And so we were able to know what we saw was different there, and especially because the last two trains, I'll call it trains like Starlink, were coming at a different angle as well. Like if you'll recall, Josh, the last two kind of came at a different angle, which was weird.
And that's one of the things that I'm really hoping that the SkyHub in the O.S.I.R.I.S can do is capture multiple instances of Starlink and be able to use machine learning and pattern recognition so that we can definitively say, this is what Starlink looks like.
Right.
Now you can avoid thinking that this is anything but that.
Right. What something that you just said, and wanted to step back to it for a minute. It's very important. We read through. So every week on the show, we do a UAP sighting of the week, where we go out to New Fork or MUFON. We just read a recent sighting and just talk about it. But one of the things that people often, I think that most people lack, is the ability to gauge distance, the ability to gauge direction, height, degrees, things of that nature. So you're right. Some sort of a mechanism, whether it be an app that you just hold up your camera to a certain direction and it gauges the degree in the sky and that sort of thing to give it information. But that would be very helpful to people, because like if you were to ask the average person how tall is that tree in your backyard, you'd probably get a varying degree of answer. Yeah. And probably some of them would be close, but really not, enough to be able to say, when you gave your UAP sighting report and you said this was 100 feet above me, was it really 100 feet above you, or was it 100 yards above you? I mean, it's because people don't have a good understanding of distance. And
there's a reason that every 7-Eleven in the United States has a tape measure beside the door, because when somebody robs the 7-Eleven and walks out of the door, they can use the surveillance camera to back up what the cashier was saying. Oh, the guy was 6'8", and as he's running out the door, he's running past the tape measure, and he's like, no, he was 5'6".
Right.
So,
wow, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yep. It's. I mean, witness testimony. I was a cop for 12 years. Witness testimony is terrible, and it's no offense to anybody who has seen anything, but we are now living in an era where we're cognizant that our reality is simply an interpretation of what our mind is seeing. So your reality can be vastly different from mine. So you can experience an event and convey it in words and writing and description totally differently than what I would do. So witness testimony is hard to get a handle on.
And to come back around to to the conversation line we were having earlier around just recently being able to see the color blue, how you process that reality is really at what level your brain is operating in order to process that reality, right? So people maybe I've heard and talked to people who have two individuals could be in a field and one can see UAP and the other one didn't. Well, is that because the one who didn't, their brain is not conditioned or open or programmed or whatever the word you want to use is to see that thing in the sky, but the person who saw it is.
Or is it because the UAP only chose to reveal itself one of the two?
That is definitely one of the things that I talk about a lot. I don't remember what we quoted something a long time ago, Josh, if you'll remember, from some book we were reading, and it said that same thing.
Yeah.
It's like if you were out in a field with a friend and your friend didn't see that UAP, it didn't want it to see it, or you were specifically chosen to see that. So
there was a recent interview I think done, Travis, Stefan?
Travis Walton.
Travis Walton. I think it was on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, but he was talking about if you saw a UAP as a child or as a kid, and then later on you saw one again in your adult life, he said they know who you are. Yeah. They reappeared to you later in your adult life. It wasn't a happenstance. And so that really got me thinking about the whole intelligence behind all of this stuff. So we were joking around the other day, and because I'm going out there to Arizona, and we were saying, well, what happens if we're out there and a UAP comes and we're standing face to face with two ETs? What would you do? I mean, really, what would you do? To think about that and process that. Stefan said he'd probably scream and pass out,
or push you forward,
or push me forward. But I mean, really, you can think about, it'd be really cool to see a UAP, but have you thought about what it would be like to have, one of those next level experiences, which is, actually seeing something face to face or abduction or whatever the case may be? How would, it's really hard to process how you would react in a situation until you're in that situation.
Yeah, you can say anything that you want to say, but until your limbic system tells you what to do, you have no idea what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Straight up.
So
That's
a
fact.
I'm interested, and I want to kind of start to wrap up here a little bit. In your experiences, so you had one in 95 that kind of set you down this path.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had any since 95?
One. And it's interesting because 30 seconds, 45 seconds ago, you were talking about if you saw one as a child and saw one later in life, it could have been the same one. So brief backstory. One of my military contacts, he was a captain in the Army. He was an all-source intelligence officer. So not a grunt, very, very highly trained in intelligence gathering and all sorts of things. He calls me up one day. He lives in New York, and he's frantic. I can hear it in his voice, and he's describing to me a sighting as it is happening to him on the phone. And I'm taking copious notes.
Yeah.
And I take a report. I take a very, very detailed report. I used to make reports for the Downing Commission and the Tiger team after the Khobar Towers bombing. I would go out into forward operating bases throughout the Middle East and do security assessments. And my reports would brief the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So I know how to write a report. And I was taking a report when he gave me this incident. And then I called him back a half hour later, and I had him tell me again. And then I waited about 3 hours, and I had him tell me again. And then 24 hours later, I had him tell me again. His report to me did not change.
Wow.
I gave that report to somebody in UAPTF. Straight up to the top of UAPTF. Probably 72 hours later, I'm here in Las Vegas. My daughter is skateboarding in the cul-de-sac over by the neighbor's house. And it's a little cold and it's dark and I want to go home. So I tell her, hey, let's go. And I turn around and I start walking back across the street to my house. And I hear her and her skateboard getting ready to cross the street. And of course, like any father would, I turn around to make sure that there's no cars coming and that she's able to cross the street safely on her skateboard. The instant that I turned around to look at my daughter, I saw the brightest damn light I have ever seen in my life in the air above my neighbor's house, without an illumination, without a beam, without casting shadows, it was just a light that existed but had no effect on the surrounding environment. And it was moving away from me. And it was, I got this really, it's making the hair on my arm stand up as I tell this.
Well, it's making the hair on my arm stand up.
Same, yeah.
I got the weirdest feeling in the world. And it was almost as if this idea had gotten into my head and somebody was saying, I'm watching you, watch me. I know you saw me. Right? So I called up Sean Cahill. And then I talked to Lou Elizondo. And Lou and Sean both told me separately, they were like, man, I don't doubt that it was the same exact one that your guy in New York saw. Because you wrote the report on it and you turned it in, that it was probably the exact same one that was saying, I know what you did.
Yep. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, but you're absolutely right. You know, we've had a lot of people on the show, and we agree with this too, that there's that connection mentally for them, that's a way for them to communicate and things like that. So absolutely that can, just saying yes.
the mental connection is something that I dug into on this right after that, because when I was talking to Sean was asking me what my mental state was when I saw what I saw. And I told Sean, I was like, listen, man, I came to a conclusion, because at the time we were in the very early stages of this film project. with Sean and Lou, and I didn't know where it was going to go. And as I was watching my daughter skateboard, well, let me correct that. As I was pretending to watch my daughter skateboard in the I was deep in thought, and I just came to the conclusion. I was like, listen, if I do this film project, I'm probably going to lose my job because I work as a defense contractor with a security clearance. And I had just come to the conclusion. I was like, I'm going to do the film project. And if this affects my job, if this affects my career, if this affects my livelihood, I still feel like this is something that I need to do. And I was basically disassociating with who I was and where I was in the moment. And my brain was way over here having a conversation with myself when I saw what I saw. So I called up John, the guy who had the sighting in New York that talked to me. And I asked him what his mental state was when he saw what he saw. And I won't tell you what he was going through, but he was going through a life-changing situation that he had just learned about 72 hours prior to his sighting. And he was basically not in his right mind when he saw what he saw. So I think that there is a very, very strong possibility that being able to disassociate from who you are or when and where you are and just being able to think outside of yourself allows you to be able to receive this communication.
It's something that I want to tease out a little bit there is in both your case and the individual in New York, you were both in a state of self where you were changing lanes, let's say.
Yes.
You were considering other possibilities.
Yes.
And in both cases, that's when your sightings occurred.
Yes.
Could it? I guess the answer always to my could it questions is could, yes, because we don't really know the answer. But I wonder if those who have sightings are in that state of changing lanes. Something in their life has happened that has caused them to reevaluate where they are, to begin to evaluate the future, to begin to evaluate other paths, and that opening, if you will, in their psyche for the evaluation of new possibilities is a prime time to insert the possibility of UAP to again start to trickle down into their future possibilities.
Well, Lou told me something that blew my mind, and I've not really concentrated on the idea a lot because I don't feel the difference. But Lou told me that when I made that decision, when I made that one life-altering decision to go in a direction at the detriment of my career, that it was at that moment that I changed realities. I changed into a different one. I shifted from where I was on this one path, and that me is still on that path, but this me is on a completely different path.
Right.
Yep, I agree. I mean, the same things happened to us. I mean, it's like once we really started digging in, I mean, it's like you can't turn it off. It's
once we saw that light in the backyard, man, ever since then, it's like everything else is an open possibility. So
yeah, it's
amazing.
It's a weird world, man. And that's why, it's not a phenomenon. It's a phenomena.
Yeah.
Because it's not just one thing.
Yep.
It is the panacea of what the hell.
Yeah.
100%.
So, just to kind of closing question.
Sure.
We've talked a lot about UAP, even a little bit of extraterrestrial dabbled in there. I'm interested in your thoughts on other parts of the phenomena, such as ghosts or cryptids. Where do you come down on the entirety of
the other unexplained?
Yeah.
I don't know yet. I have thoughts, I have ideas and low grade opinions. I don't multitask well, but so, I mean, I don't walk and chew gum at the same time very often. I think that if we're looking at a place like Skinwalker and we're looking at stories about materializations and manifestations and owls suddenly appearing on the second floors of barns and dogs on roofs and things like that just shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
I think that this is probably either the idea that the phenomena has a trickster mentality to it and just likes to screw with us, because why not? I mean, it's the same way that a 6-year-old with a magnifying glass torments a hill of ants with screwing with anthills. But at the same time, going back to the idea that there may well be nuts and bolts and spacefaring civilizations, we all travel through space and time in our three-dimensional medium. We are on this planet. Our planet is in space-time, and it is traveling throughout the cosmos at however millions of miles an hour that we're moving. There is no reason to think that there is not a universal medium in which multiple entities can travel. Yeah. And, if oceans touch ponds and lakes and rivers and streams, and they're all interconnected, there's no reason to think that this medium of travel isn't interconnected with our reality. So there may be crossing points. There may be places where our reality becomes thin. There may be, for lack of a better word, portals. I published an article on Medium yesterday, I believe. It was called, it was either yesterday or the day before, but it was basically programming reality.
Yeah, I was just reading that today.
It was basically verbal vomit that I came up with, or written vomit that I came up with, about how the idea of occult symbolism or rituals could be nothing more than a programming language for a construct.
Yep, we're going to talk about that quite a bit.
Yeah, this is the input and the output of the reality that we live in. So, with cryptids, I think that there's probably a bifurcation here. There are species that we find in existence every single day that we did not know existed prior. Yep. I mean, we just drilled down 3,000 feet under the Arctic ice and found some stuff that should not be existing there.
Right.
So cryptids, I think, in a three-dimensional physical, they eat bananas and climb up pine trees type of way, I think they exist straight up. And I just think that they're probably incidences of animals that have either somehow survived past their extinction date, or they've been created prior to us identifying them. I think that's a real possibility. But at the same time, I also think that there's probably entities, creatures, beasties, lower level life forms that have gotten trapped in a whirlpool and appeared in a vortex that they probably shouldn't have been.
Or potentially, like we've talked about before, they're phasing in and out of our dimension. Yeah,
and their thin reality and our thin reality, you could have a quote unquote skinwalker that's hunting his version of an antelope somewhere, and the next thing you know, he's in the middle of Utah, and there's some guy doing CE5, and he's like, what the hell is this?
Where are all these rads?
He's just as freaked out as Dragon is, and somebody gets their arms ripped off. So
it often makes me wonder if we are skirting realities, if there are times when we're appearing in their reality, and what that must look like to them.
Oh, I think so, for sure. I mean, there's stories of people that they just were walking somewhere, ended up somewhere else, and were like, what the hell? And then they ended up back here, so we definitely have stories of the same thing.
Yeah, I've had a couple, well, not a couple. I've had one incident where I ended up somewhere that I wasn't supposed to be. I was, long story short, I was driving home when I was living back in West Virginia. And I had been on this route thousands of times. I knew exactly the exit that I was supposed to take at 99 off of Interstate 79, coming back in from Fairmont, West Virginia to Buchanan, West Virginia. The exit would have been on my right-hand side. There's no lights or anything around it, but I knew I could have driven this road blindfolded. The exit wasn't there. And I drove a couple miles and I was like, holy crap, I'm past the exit. So I turn around and make a U-turn in the interstate, and I go back and I missed it again. And it happened like 3 or 4 times until finally I turn around. I didn't miss the exit. It just did not exist.
It wasn't there. Yeah.
It just was not there. And I think it was the 4th time that I made a U-turn and came back around that the exit was finally there and I got home.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, it's just like you flipped over to a dimension where that exit never existed. Who knows? Yeah, I've had some weird stuff too, man.
Well, and it's interesting you said West Virginia, because there seems to be a lot of weird stuff that happens in West Virginia, Kentucky, Appalachia kind of area. So
yeah, we got the Mothman.
Yeah. Yep. So
well, Jeremy, we're gonna wrap things up. Thank you so much, man, for taking your time with us. We really, really appreciate it. And of course, you know, it would not be good if we didn't give you this opportunity to let people know where they can find you, find stuff about Osiris, and all that jazz, because we want to make sure people get to it.
The absolute easiest way to find me is on Twitter. I'm prolific on Twitter. It's Jeremy Unidentified, UNIDENTI, and the number 1 on Twitter. It was a stupid username that I came up with because I didn't think it would ever amount to anything, and now I've got 2,000 and some followers.
It's like Tiller for Riller.
Yeah, and then my YouTube channel, just search me by name on YouTube, Jeremy McGowan.
Yep, and we'll be sharing those as well.
And then very soon I will be publishing a personal webpage which goes along with my name.
Yep, and please let us know when that comes out. We will absolutely share that. We love the information that we've found, and we are very anxious to continue talking to you and following your research. And I loved it. I wanted to quickly just say one of my favorite things was on Twitter the other day. You dropping that, that poll about asking people if you had the ability to elicit an interactive response from the phenomenon through technology, would you A, monetize it, B, make a show about it, or C, give it to the world free? And 85.5% said yes, let's give it to the world for free. And I love that. And that
it wasn't just 5 or 10 people voting on that. I had a couple hundred people voted on that, and 85% was like, give it to the world for free.
Yep.
And that's great. If I can continue to give stuff to the world for free and keep my lights on, I will absolutely do it. If I can find a way to monetize it without compromising the data or compromising the science to keep my lights on, I will probably go that route. So I don't begrudge anybody that monetizes any of this. No. We all need to eat.
Yeah, we've said the same thing about ghost stories, and so people are like, oh, well, they were just trying to get money. I'm like, listen, if I had a ghost that punched me in the face and somebody offered me $100,000 to write a book about it, you better damn well believe I'm gonna say yes.
Absolutely.
That does not mean I did not get punched in the face by a ghost. It just means that I would like to go to Maui next time.
It just means you're not dumb, stuff.
Exactly. But yeah, thank you, Jeremy, so much, man. We appreciate you so much for coming on the show. You are welcome to come on anytime. What a fantastic conversation.
Awesome. Steph and Josh, it's been a pleasure.
All right. Thank you, Jeremy McGowan. We really appreciate it. You guys can go to Instagram, follow him there. He's got some really cool stuff.
And everything that he does with O.S.I.R.I.S is on his YouTube channel.
Yep.
And he's got like a whole thing about how he set up his rig and going out and doing his searches. So, go out and check out his YouTube channel and subscribe to that.
Yeah. So, and it's probably been mentioned, but of course, Twitter is at Jeremy Unident. Oh my God, I can't even say it. So Jeremy UNIDENTI 1, and then Instagram, go to Osiris_UAP. We just want to keep pushing that because it's some remarkable stuff. And thank you, Jeremy, for coming on the show. Before we get out of here, I want to get to our listener story here real quick. I do again, sir, have another listener UAP sighting that I wanted to go over. I had to for this episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this one comes from a listener, one of our Facebook followers named Caden Mask, which a great name, Caden Mask. Like I want to create a superhero named Caden Mask.
I'm pretty sure there was an 80s cartoon that was based off him.
Yeah, the Mask one. Anyways, so this is Caden Mask's UAP sighting.
This past winter, we were outside smoking. My wife was looking up, and I was looking down at my phone. She started hitting my arm, calling my name frantically. I looked at her as she stood and was pointing at the sky. I asked what she said she saw, and she said she saw something big and dark and that it just flew over our house. Before she could fully finish her sentence, just over the tree, barely 200 yards above our house, a very large craft was slowly going over the house. It was the size of a full-size truck, perhaps a little bit bigger. Black and oval-shaped, had 2 large bars under it, and it almost looked like it had sled skis on it. It was super quiet, not even humming, and moved at a super slow pace. I, of course, tried to record it and chase it, but my phone decided to crash, and so did my wife's.
Interesting. That's the first time I've ever heard of one with like having skids before.
Right. Well, and that to me would say helicopter, but I mean, if it's not,
if it's not making any noise,
it's not there. I don't know of a helicopter that don't make noise.
No.
There are no undercover helicopters. Like it's not.
No, not that we know of anyway.
Yeah, I mean it's not like. No, it's like. So.
How's it again? Okay. You sound.
I know what that sounds like. That sounds like my. Shut up.
Sounds like the flubber car.
Yeah, the flubber car, man. But thank you, Caden Mask, for sending that in. I'm glad we could finally get to your story. I wanted to make sure and share that. But yeah, that's where we're at, man. I want to wrap this up, get out of here. Just a reminder, again, I told you I would come back to this. Yep. March 5th, 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, tarot readings from me. Sign up for your slot. There's 12 slots. They're $40 a piece. It's donation going to the FearScape Media Network. You can also, that's fearscapemedia.com/tarot, or go to fearscapemedia.com/support. If you just want to donate, you're not into tarot, that's fine. We're going to have some other events and all that stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun, but you can donate all through the month of February and March. It's going to be a lot of fun. But Josh, also, you ready to get out of here, man?
I want to remind folks about the app. So, you can go out to, unfortunately at this point in time, it's only on Android. So you have to go to Google Play. You can download the FearScape Media Network app. And from there, you can get access to listen to all of the pods that are on the network. You can shop our store. You can contact us on our different social media, everything from the app. So make sure you go out there, check that out, download it, review it if you would, and help us out.
Yeah, and get out there, like all those other podcasts. There's some great content out there, and just a reminder how much we love you guys. Man, we could not do any of this without our blanket huggers, but that's why we're gonna get out of here, so that you don't have to just listen to my grating voice all the time. Just kidding, I love my voice. But no, we're gonna get out of here. Josh, thank you so much. I always appreciate you joining me every single week. But yeah, this has been Stefan. Keep your eyes to the skies.
This has been Josh. The truth is now.
Yeah, you like my new one?
I do.
That's good. Yeah. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
We hope you have enjoyed this guidepost on the road of high strangeness with us. And we thank you, as always, for listening and joining our caravan to the weird and unknown. Please consider supporting us as we continue our journey to find the answers we all seek. FearScapePodcast.com/support.